Hello from Waterless Toilet Shop. This video is to present you two great composting toilets. One, the Aussie Pod, and two, the Tiny Pod. Both of these composting toilets are self-contained batch composting toilets. This means that they're installed directly on floor level. There is no need for clear space below your bathroom to install these systems. Batch composting means that both of them come with two or more composting toilet containers that are used when servicing the composting toilet. I'm now going to jump behind the camera and show you some of the details of both of these composting toilets. Let's first have a brief overview of both toilets. The Aussie Pod has more round shape if you compare it with the Tiny Pod. Both toilets are obviously bright white color. If you look to the behind, both systems have a ventilation outlet and a drainage outlet. Here's what it looks like behind the Tiny Pod. If we open up the toilet seat lids, you can see that the Aussie Pod has that view screen, whereas the Tiny Pod doesn't have a view screen. With the Aussie Pod, the view screen is opened by turning the knob every time you're using the toilet, and obviously when you're done, you close it up back again. Whereas with the Tiny Pod, you can cover your tracks using dry organic material. It looks like this. With all composting toilets, you usually add dry material every time you've done your number 2. You don't have to add the dry material if you're just peeing into the toilet. Both composting toilets have a soft closed seat, so you can just close it by itself like that. The Aussie Pod is just a little bit wider compared to the Tiny Pod, so if you have really limited space, the Tiny Pod might be more likely to fit in, though the difference ain't that big. And of course, we have the measurements listed online, so you can check that before purchasing. Let's have a look inside both of these composting toilets. The top part comes off just by lifting it like that, and I place it over here. We can have a look inside the Aussie Pod. It looks like this. There is the inner composting container. Imagine this is full of solid waste. There's always dry material, toilet paper, and then of course your number 2s. Next, I'm going to show you what it looks inside the Tiny Pod. The top part off, it goes like this. And we can find similar inner composting toilet container or bin inside the Tiny Pod as well. Now imagine you've been using the toilet for a couple months, depending on how many people they are using it. I'm going to show you how you would exchange the containers and service the toilet. To service the system, you of course need to have the spare container emptied. I'm just gonna carry it right over here. Now, it depends a lot how long it takes for the compost within the composting toilet container to become ready with composting. I would say that in a warm climate, it takes about 3 to 6 months, depending on, of course, how warm. Here in Nevada, it would be probably 3-4 months because it's really hot, over 100 degrees in summer. But if you're from the northern part, then it would of course take much longer, 6 to up to 12, even 16 months, depending of course the climate. But let's imagine that the composting toilet container within the Aussie Pod is now full and we need to service it. We need the spare container emptied, like I said, and then the drip tray. Because what happens is that because the composting toilet container has tiny holes at the bottom for the urine to flow through. And when you're lifting the composting toilet container up, there will be slightly bit of dripping of liquids. And therefore, to avoid any spillage, you have to use the drip tray. It is at this point when I would seal the solids with the closed lid. I'm just gonna close it with the loops like that and like that, and then connect the drip tray to the full container. And now it's ready to be carried out, and you can leave it next to a tree or wherever you have a good spot for the full compost. I'm just gonna put it right over here. Then we have the empty spare container. I'm just gonna show you what it looks inside here. You can see there are the tiny holes at the bottom through which the excess urine will flow through. Of course, a lot of the liquid will get absorbed into the compost and evaporate through ventilation, especially in the warm climates. But yeah, I'm just gonna put the jute liner. This is organic, so it will compost, and it will avoid the tiny holes from getting blocked by the solid waste. I'm just gonna put it inside here, and then put the top part of the composting toilet back onto its place. And now the toilet is pretty much ready to be used again. I'm gonna show you how it's done with the tiny pod, just as a recap. So first, you would of course have to have the spare container emptied, if it's not empty yet. I'm just gonna bring it right over here. Now let's imagine I have that container full of solid waste. I'll bring the drip tray and again lift the full compost container up, put it on the drip tray over there, and then seal the lid with a closed lid. There's actually a small hole with a mesh so we can get air to the compost when it's outside. I'm gonna seal it. Connect the drip tray, and now it's ready to be carried out and leave it outside for further composting. Put it there. And then you would again place a new jute liner to the bottom of the new empty container. This also has those tiny holes at the bottom for excess liquids to drain out. I put it here. And then put the top part of the composting toilet back onto its place. And the toilet is pretty much ready to be used. When you're taking the composting toilet into use, I would recommend always adding at least an inch or two a layer of dry material to the bottom, so you have a good start for the compost. That's it. That's how you would service both of these composting toilet systems. The basic packages always come with 2 containers, so you have 1 in use and 1 spare container. If you have more people than 2 or 3 using the tiny pod, I would say that you should get at least a 3rd container. If there are 4 people using the same toilet, I would say that you probably need even 4 composting toilet containers, so that you always have an empty spare available when one in the use fills up. The Aussie pod has slightly bigger composting toilet container, so if you have 2 or 3 people, you might be okay with the basic package coming with 2 containers. But if there's more people using the toilet, or you're using it full-time year-round, being the only toilet, you're likely gonna need at least 3rd or even a 4th container. It depends a bit on the climate, how long the compost process is and all that, so it's difficult to give very exact estimates how many containers you need. Of course, you can always purchase extra containers afterwards if you're unsure. What may not be obvious from the video is that of course you have to have the vent pipe going through your back wall, or alternatively you could make it straight up through your roof level. In addition, there is a fan coming with both of these models. The fan operates at 12 volts, it's 3 watts, so it's really low consumption fan. If you have solar system, you could have it with it. If you have no power at all, I would recommend having the solar panel fan that we have in our selection. So when the sunlight hits the solar panel fan, the fan inside rotates and operates, constantly boosting air away from the composting toilet up to the sky. Alternatively, or together with the solar panel fan, you could also consider having the whirlybird. So when the wind hits it, the coal rotates, creating under pressure below the vent pipe stack. A lot of people are always concerned about having smell within their bathroom with composting toilet, but in my long experience, I can assure you that there is no smell whatsoever coming out from the composting toilet, and that's a guarantee. Of course, you have to have the vent pipes installed, you need to have the fan, whether that is electrical or some other fan. But really, the most important thing keeping the composting toilet odorless is to use the dry material and have the liquids separated from the compost, creating optimal moisture balance for the compost. Because if you would have no liquid separation at all, then the compost would be always too wet to compost and it would actually rot. And that's the thing that causes a production of ammonia, which causes the bad smell that a lot of people are afraid of. As long as you have the fan with the system and you have the vent pipes installed correctly, there is no smell whatsoever coming out from the toilet. It might seem amazing, but it's really because the liquids are separated from the solid waste at the bottom of the toilet container. So that's how it creates an optimal moisture balance for the compost. So it really doesn't smell at all. Should you go away for a long time so that you're not using the toilet for months, you can disconnect the fan, take out the composting toilet container and leave it outside so you don't have to worry about coming back again and there would be smell inside your home or cabin. Both the Aussie Pod and the Tiny Pod are great solutions for anybody who doesn't have any clear space below their bathroom floor level. Probably the best thing about these toilets is that they have the spare container, they're batch composting, so you can always extend the capacity of the system. Both systems are completely odorless, they're pretty simple to install. If you have any questions, contact us at the waterlesstoiletshop.com. There's our phone number, email, and a chat that you can use to contact us. I will be posting this video to YouTube. Below the video, there is always a comments section. Post your questions there and I'll be answering as soon as I can. Hope to make some more composting toilet videos soon enough. We have still a lot to show. Thanks a lot.